So, can I get a confirmation that people are ready or not? Is everybody ready? I saw one hand raise. I saw a yep. Okay. Let's wait just one more second.
Hello?
Oh, yep, we're here. Okay. Um, okay, so now what we're going to be doing in this lesson, we're going to open up our scenes again, and we're going to spend a little bit more time kind of digging around these so-called property windows. And we're going to, when we do that, we're going to, yeah, there we go. Good. For some reason, my keyboard's not playing nice to me today. When we do that, we're going to be looking at what our purpose is any time that we make a game, and it doesn't even really have to be a game. It can be like a user interface program, a database we're working with. It doesn't even really matter. But whenever we're making a computer program, we often need to interact with the items that we've put into memory. And even though we aren't manually writing the code for every single item that's in our scene, in practice, the computer still has to load that in our game, right? It has to like load an image and figure out what all the pixels are, and has to tell the computer put these pixels at this spot. And so like that's just what these scene editors must do in order for that to happen. And the question then is, if I want to actually make my game do something, I need to be able to get the items from the scene and then tell them to do something. So the next couple lessons, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting items from the scene, and then we're going to be changing its properties. So when I say properties, let's take a look at what that means exactly. So if I use the keyboard or the mouse, doesn't really matter. On my screen, I'm going to share. Am I sharing? I'm not sharing. If I share screen, and if I look at it, or if I get it with a screen reader, I can select on any tile. I've selected my gray ogre, which is the player character that I chose to put in there. And on the properties of this thing, it has a name, gray ogre. It has a position 8000, which is its position on the grid. It has a scale 1 and 1. It has a rotation of 0. It can either have physics or not. Mine's not enabled. And it has mass, friction, and restitution. Mass, if you're not a physics person, mass is related, but not exactly related to weight. Sort of the mass of the object is related to that. Friction is sort of, where it goes on the, how much force there is against it on the ground. And the restitution is how bouncy something is. It's sort of like a measure of bounciness, in a sense. And in this particular case, what we're going to do first in this lesson is we need to know the name of our object, because we're going to use that to get it from the scene. And so in my case, I have gray ogre here. And what I'd like to do first is I'd like to change that property so that I can use this. And I'm going to do this with the screen reader, and I'm going to do it with the mouse, just so people can see how it's done. With the mouse, I just click on the property window, and then I type and change the name to whatever I want. So in this particular case, instead of gray ogre, I'm going to call it Bob, right? And then that's it. That's all I have to do. If I'm using a screen reader,
Quorum Studio 2.0.1 window. Bob 1 of 1, 80.0, 0.0, 0.0.
So in this particular case, the screen reader is still selected on Bob, and you can get to that by using the cursor like we've done before. And if I press Control P,
Name edit selected Bob.
it goes to the property window and it says name edit selected Bob. It automatically selects the item that's there. And then I'm going to change that name
Unselected.
from Bob to
J.
well,
J.
Jill,
L.
whatever it is.
Jill 1 of 1. 80.0. 0.0. 0.0.
So before we do anything, make sure that you change the name, and just for the sake of argument, change the name to something simple that you can spell easily. It doesn't really matter, but it'll just make the next part slightly simpler. Okay. And then save your scene, Control S, and then let's close that scene.
Code tabs tab control. Main.quorum.
And just like before, what we're now going to do in this lesson is we're going to get this item from the scene, and then we're going to get some of its properties and we're going to output them to the screen. So this is still talking about types, and this is still talking about how we output stuff. So we're still actually talking about the same programming concept that we just started, but this time we're going to be doing a totally different kind of type, not a primitive, but what's called an object. And so to do this, we have to call an action inside our program to get it from the scene. And so the way that we do this, the easiest way to do it is right below where we said output down with evil Lord Bunnykins, or whatever it was that you put, we're going to type control space.
File 1 of 750.
And on the screen, you can see that there's a box that popped up, and this is called code completion. And code completion is a way that we can basically enter a special mode that tells us which things are available to be called inside of our program. And I'm going to type the letter capital
File 1 of find item 2D by name, text name, 1 of 26.
And so what happens is, when I type F, it automatically filters all of the items in code completion. And the very first one of them, just by luck, happens to be the one we want. And that's called find item 2D by name. It's a little bit of a weird name, but I want you to press enter on that thing.
Code tabs tab control. Main.quorum tab. Code edit text box document find item 2D by name.
Okay. Now, to actually call an action in a program, we're going to put a left and a right parentheses. And this action...
Spelling error. Right paren.
Okay, this action requires inside of it that we put some double quotes in there. And also as well, on the screen, you'll notice that there's a little red line. The little red line indicates it's an error, and that's correct because we haven't finished typing yet on the screen. So I'm going to put 2 double quotes, and then I'm going to read this line. So now I have on line 29, right below where it says output double quote down with evil Lord Bunnykins double quote, right below that I have find item 2D by name, capital F, capital I, capital B for by, and capital N for name. And then I have a left paren, 2 double quotes, and then a right paren. Now I'm going to copy that exact code
F selected
into Zoom. So if
command prompt 1 Slack epic start bit
so
tasks meeting control more chat core from me to Noni Andrea Stephen.
So that's
Quorum
the code
tabs tab control.
Okay, now another thing to notice here is if there's a
view
special...
expanded 3 of 8. Zoom in control plus equals 40 lines. Class main 2 additions. Code tabs tab control. Main.quorum tab. Code edit text box document find item 2D by name.
Ironically, we fixed a bug with code completion the other day and it caused our...
View expanded 3 of 8. Zoom in line 29 of 40. Hint. Assign return value to new variable. Inserted. Code tabs tab control. Main.quorum.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to show that there's also an accessibility key that you can get information about this line of code. And
Quorum,
Honestly, I can't get the
view
font to
expanded
write this
3 of
exact
8.
setting. Things
Zoom in,
control.
line 29 of 40.
So here's what I want to do. I want to have everybody listen to what this summary says of this line. And then I want to very briefly notice I hope you notice one thing about it.
View expanded 3 of 8. Line 29 of 40. Hint, assign return value to new variable. Inserted. Code tabs tab control. Main.quorum tab. Code edit text box document find item 2D by name. Code edit text box document find item 2D by name.
Okay, it's a little bit long, but did anybody notice anything that was in the summary of this line of code?
Stop.
Zip desktop. Exit and
Are we all napping?
Yeah, we have to assign a return value. There was a hint about assigning a return value, which goes into the parentheses.
That is exactly right. And Denise said the same thing. It said hint. Now, this is interesting. One of the reasons why programmers in practice often don't just use a box on a web, is because modern development environments give you tons of hint information, and Quorum Studio is no exception. So I'm going to turn the screen reader off for just a moment, but I'm going to describe orally what it does. So on this line, not only does it give you an oral indication through the screen reader that there's a hint, but visually, there is also a little green box next to that line of code. And that little green box tells you that there's a hint available. And there's a couple ways you can look at it. One is you can open the context menu. The screen reader users, you can do this too. And on side of it says assign return value to new variable, and that'll give you information. And that if I do that, it'll actually do the thing, but I won't get there yet. Besides that, besides right-clicking on it or opening the context menu broadly and having it work that way, there's also a hotkey for these hints, and that is Alt-Enter. And that is a key combination that I use probably 100 billion times per day because Quorum does a pretty good job at it. And you'll notice what happens. When I press Alt-Enter on this line, it automatically injected the line of code that I need from this function. And this value is mathematically guaranteed to be correct. It cannot be wrong, barring some bug that I don't know about and that I haven't run into. And so this line of code now says item 2D value equals find item 2D by name. And the cool thing about this is that what this means is that if I don't know how the types work in Quorum, I often don't have to, because Quorum does know how its types work, and it will give us hints and automatically inject the right code at the right time for us to do this kind of stuff. Now, interestingly, on this line of code, there's a green line, and also from an accessibility perspective, still going to say that there's a hint, and there's still a green line right there. And interestingly, that's because in our program, we don't yet know about this. It doesn't know about this thing called item 2D. So what I want to do is I want to point up to the top of the file. There's 3 lines of code. It says use libraries.game.game, use libraries.game.scenes.scene, and use libraries.system.file. So does anybody know what a use statement is? What is a use statement?
Participants 14 with.
Is that referencing a library?
It is. So the idea in programming, no matter what programming language you're using, you never write all the code yourself. That's too hard. No human could do that. It is just absolutely impossible. There's no possible way you could do it. Just like even in one lifetime, you could never understand all possible mathematics. It's just not possible, right? Or learn every English word. It's just not feasible. It's not practical. It's not tractable at all. So what we do is we use libraries that other people have written, and those libraries give us functionality that we wouldn't have otherwise. So for example, in this case, use libraries.game.game, that actually does all sorts of crazy hardware accelerated graphics stuff. Libraries.game.scenes.scene, that's the new scene system in Quorum 8 that allows all this stuff to work together. And then libraries.system.file, this allows us to write to disk. right? To open files, load files, read files, write files, stuff like that. Now, inside of our line of code, back to line 29, I have find item 2D by name. And again, I go to that if I haven't done it already, and if I press Alt Enter or use the clicking, it will generate this thing that says item 2D value equals find item 2D by name. And then in the underline, green underline under value, I can actually just press Alt Enter again. And you'll notice at the very top of the file, it actually added a new line of code for me that says use libraries.interface.item2d. Now here's the thing. When you're teaching, if you're teaching students, you should not, and no one really does, have students memorize all of these lines. It's too hard. Even I, as a programmer that's programmed for a really long time, and also, you know, I even invented Quorum. And so, but even in that case, I don't memorize all of these different libraries. It's just too difficult. There's too many of them. It's way, 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 way too hard. And also pointless, because Quorum itself knows how these work and it can generate them for me. So why would I possibly memorize it? External cognition like this is really important. And so it's a normal thing in programming, and you should not be worried about memorizing all of these little details. It's not critical to being able to code effectively. Okay, before I go on to the next part, are there any any questions? Okay.
Andy,
Yes.
what does a yellow square mean?
Oh,
instead
okay,
of
you know what?
green
I actually
square?
said it slightly wrong. I said that the green square was a hint. I'm wrong. The yellow square is the hint. The reason on my screen I have a green square is because the project that I opened is under version control, and this is telling me that I have a new line of code compared to the version that's on GitHub. So I actually said that slightly wrong, and I'm glad you mentioned it because because that's the case. Yellow square is a hint. Yellow square is a hint. Okay, any other questions? Happy to take them.
And then you just hit alternate or control alternate enter to get the hint?
If you look at my screen, I'll do it again. There's two ways you can do it. And I'll delete the line of code that it put out there just so you can see. One way, if you don't remember the key, you can right click on it and it'll tell you the first option is what it will do. So that's one option. And you can also do that with a screen reader. That works just fine. Or you can do it. What I do is I press Alt Enter just because then what that tells Quorum to do is it says, hey, I know that you might have multiple hints here, but I want you to guess which one's probably the one I want. And then when I wrote the hint system, I was a pretty good guesser because we gather lots of data on people and we kind of know what people want most of the time. And so it's not perfect, but it does a really damn good job of guessing which things you are doing correctly. And for you, Kathy, you'll notice we have all these errors now behind the scenes we've talked about in the meetings. Guess how we derive the kind of things we should get hints on. So this kind of stuff. And so I press Alt Enter and hey, look at that. It guessed pretty damn correct. And if I press Alt Enter again, it says, hey, it doesn't know what item 2D is. Let me fix that for you. And then blammo, and it's done. So this is handy. Oh, that's adorable. Mike Face has his daughter up, I assume. Unless it's not his daughter, then I'm worried, but I assume it's his daughter. So I'm just kidding, Mike. And then, so what's happened is then it's injected 2 lines of code and we're back to where we were. Okay, now, the next thing we're gonna do is gonna sound really strange. We're gonna force our program to crash, okay? And we're doing this on purpose because I want you to know that this isn't that scary, right? It's not that big of a deal. Programs crash, it happens, right? Especially as you're inventing them. So what we're gonna do, our find item by name is looking for blank. It's looking for a blank name. There is nothing in our scene that has a blank name. So when it returns this value, it's going to be garbage memory. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to try to output the garbage. And it's gonna tell me what? So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm sorry, this won't cause it to crash, but it will in a moment. I'm gonna say value colon on a new line of code, and it's gonna pop up code completion again. And inside of code completion, I'm going to type I'm going to type get x. So the actual line of code is value : capital G get x. And then before that, I'm going to put an output statement. And you will note, it's annoying, I know, we just discovered it on Sunday night. If you type GE, there's a weird bug where if you put 2 items in the filter, it will cut off the code completion a little bit. I'm not really sure why, but it is what it is. Oh, good. Amanda found the error. Okay. So now I've got output value : get x. I'm going to put that line of code in Slack. I mean, sorry, in Zoom, since it seems like that's been the easiest for people. Output space value lowercase v : capital G get x, capital X. Left and right paren. The left and right paren is telling you that you're calling an action on something. It's like telling it to do something. In this case, it's saying, hey, go find your x coordinate, return it to me. But here's the problem. This is going to be nothing. So when I run this program, when I press Control R, I should see it crash, barring I've made a coding mistake. So I press Control R, and voila, my program crashed. And I want to point out what this crash is. And I'm going to read it with a screen reader too, so you can see what it is. So in my line
Quorum
of code,
Studio 2.0.1.
I press Control 3.
Output tabs tab control.
That takes me to
Console
the
tab.
console. And I'm going to press down a bunch of times.
Running hands-on with Quorum Studio. Build successful in 0.07 seconds. Down with evil Lord Bunnykins. Down with evil Lord Bunnykins. Down with evil Lord Bunnykins.
That just needed to be repeated. And then after that, I'm going to get to my error, and it always starts like this.
Error. The object being referenced is undefined.
Now here's the idea. There is no item of the name blank in my scene. And as such, Quorum knows it shouldn't return anything because there's nothing of that name. So that means value has no value, which is slightly ironic. And when we give that a name in programming, and the name of something without any value is called undefined. Undefined. When an item is undefined, I cannot do anything with it. I can't call a function on it because that makes no sense. I can't add it to something because that makes no sense. So what Quorum and most programming languages do is they intentionally crash. And the reason they do that is because they output something called a stack trace, which tells you where the error was. So in this case, it says,
error. The object being referenced is undefined.
But importantly, the next line is where it crashed.
File, main.quorum, class, main, action, create game, line, 31.
So it tells me the line of code that I was on, and that's the one I
Code
just
tabs tab control,
value
main
get
dot
X.
output value get x,
Everybody kind of, does that make sense?
exit nv.
Okay, I see Mike shaking his head. Okay. All right. Now, let's go ahead and fill in that value with the name. And I chose Jill. So I typed Jill into the between the quotation marks in find item 2D by name. And I'm going to rerun my program. And I hope if it finds Jill, and I didn't miss fat finger it or something, that it's going to tell me the X coordinate of that item. And this is how we get properties from the system. And you'll notice we can get them. It also means we can change them. So I'm going to run it. My game started up, and in the console, which you can find with the screen reader or without, it says 80. Can I get like a raise hand or something to tell me that you've gotten to this point and that you're able to do this part? This is really, really important. We're going to use this the whole rest of the time. Denise, raise your hand. I see a thumbs up from Mike. Oh, what's the hotkey for these to raise hand or whatever? Anybody know? Oh, I see a real thumbs up from Kathy. All right, that's good.
Audio now unmuted alert.
Isn't Alt-Y your raise hand when you're in the
Delete from
Zoom
insert
window?
to everyone.
I don't know. That's what I was asking.
I think it's
Alt-Y.
Alt-Y.
Okay. So yeah, we'll have to do that.
Want me to try it for you?
Sure.
Hand now raised alert.
Yep, you did it. All right, cool. So people are raising their hands. That's great.
And Alt-Y brings it back down
The
again
host has
too.
acknowledged your raised
Got
hand.
it. Alt-Y. Okay, great. All right, so I think we did it. So we've got a value, which is output properties in a running program. And so here's what I want you to do. For the next 5 minutes, I would like you, and I'll stop screen sharing, I would like you to look at the code completion and just kind of dig through it to see the kinds of things that you can get from the system. And I'd like you to output 3 properties. We already output X. I want you to output 2 more. Now, they can be whatever you want. If you want to go simple, you can output just Y and Z. No problem, but you've done 3 properties. If you want to go slightly fancier, you can get the mass or the restitution or something like that. But the point is, I want you to get sufficiently comfortable that you can output a property to the system so that you can get information about what's in your scene. And you'll notice that in the next lesson, we're going to start to manipulate these properties. And this is how we add things like movement, or we add things like quests or stuff like that as we trigger items in the scene to do actions for us. Josh says, game launched, I got my text string, but no value for X. Josh, would you like to go into a breakout with Jeremy? Would that be helpful? Your choice. Well, let me know if you do. Okay, so you got 5 minutes to try and output 2 more properties. Again, if you want to go simple, no problem at all. And then just go add Y and X. And if you prefer to do something more complicated or get a different property, no problem there too. You're welcome to do whatever you want there. But get 2 properties from the system, explore it, and try to find those on your own for a couple minutes. Yes, Amanda.
Hey, Leslie's having weird error where her quorum isn't responding. We've restarted, we've updated NVDA, she just restarted it again, and it just says not responding.
Whenever it boots or something?
Yeah, like she's trying to just open Quorum Studio and it just kicks to not responding.
That's strange. Did you try opening it from the console to see if it gives you an error?
No, why would I try that?
If you run it from that command that I discussed earlier, that might give you what the heck is going on that system, and then that would tell us some information. There's also a way we could also, like, if I don't know, before we shouldn't do this yet, but we could also uninstall and reinstall it and see if that like magically fixes it, or kill its properties files and then that'll reboot it back to like its default state and see if that fixes it. But before we do that, we should see if we can trigger the error so that we know, and then we can fix it if it's a thing. So.
Okay.
Weird, Denise. Yeah, sounds like we should try to find out what that is because I've never run into it. So,
yeah. Yesterday, that's what mine was doing. And Jeremy took me into my File Explorer, into the Studio folder. I just deleted everything out, restarted it, and it worked great.
Weird. Well, let's try to, if you can, boot it from the console, because then it'll give us the error, and then we can fix it instead of like trying to do a hack around it. So,
Jeremy, can you pop into that room and help her with booting from the console? Because I cannot remember all the steps.
You just wanted the logs, right?
Yeah. You know how to do that, right, Jeremy?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
And that's Leslie, right?
I need
Yeah.
I need also help with the same situation because I was trying to install the program in my work computer. They gave me permission, but I was getting the message that for some reason I could not download it. That they
No.
said the link was invalid.
No problem. I'll put Jeremy and
Yeah.
Leslie into breakout room 2. Is Leslie still in there?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Diana as well into breakout room 2. So there we go. Did you want them to?
Thank you, Jeremy.
Emily Rock has left the meeting.
I don't think I need to be back in there, but I can hop in on my own if I want to.
At
Yeah.
some point, unfortunately, I'm gonna need to work with someone. I'm following concepts very well, but not being able to manipulate them on the keyboard.
Yeah, I understand.
So I've been spending more time just listening. I understand the concepts very well, but I'm afraid it might take some time with someone to work with me later.
I'm in a class.
It's not a problem, man. That's why we're online. It's always so much easier in person because you can like sit down and be like, oh no, press this button. Yeah, but that's why we have this breakout room thing and also the office hours because we sort of assumed that that's going to be the case for more than one person. So,
I'm willing to wait for office hours. That's fine if someone has the time then. I'd like to listen to the lecture today, but I would like to spend time with someone one-on-one later today if it's possible.
I was going to say too, if Amanda's willing, we could toss you in a breakout room right now, or we could also, after Jeremy's done with those two, we can have him in a breakout room with you.
I don't mind. I can hop in and walk through stuff with Art if he wants.
You want to do that?
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it was beyond me for Leslie's problem, so we had to.
It's not a problem. I'm going to move you to 3 so that it's there, and I'm going to move you, Art, as well to breakout room 3.
Thank you.
No problem.
Breakout rooms. F2 the host is inviting you to
Okay.
join breakout room.
So yeah, so that's what we got. So that's.
Do I have
the
to
end
go
of
there
this.
manually or will it take me there automatically?
I think you have to press a button to go.
Uh-oh.
I know.
Never done that.
I think it's a window that pops up, so you'll have to alt tab to it, is the best of my recollection.
I'll give it a try. Thank you.
Yep.
Quorum Studio 2. Epic 2000.
So the idea is
Meeting row 1 column 1 breakout rooms. F2 the host is inviting you to
Wait,
join
wait,
breakout room.
Sorry.
that's it. No, it's okay, dude. Did you get there? All right, great. Okay, so we should have properties on side of our stuff, and that seems like it sounds like a lot of us, there's a couple of trouble spots here and there, but it sounds like we're getting there for the most part. Any questions before we go on to the next piece?
Andy,
Yes.
I get how you get X, get Y, get Z, but how do you get the mass or the friction or the restitution? How do you get those values?
No problem. So inside of the code completion, one thing that I often do is when I press value : it'll pop up code completion. And sometimes it's helpful to just search through this list. And so I often type G, and then I just start looking at what's there. So there's a ton of stuff. So there's gained focus, get accessibility code, which has to do if you want to send extra screen reader information, get accessibility type, which we won't go into, accessible parent. There's angular damping, angular velocity, bounding box, bounding rectangle, get center X, clip coordinates, collision group flag. Now, to be clear, this kind of stuff is exactly why I'm saying no one on earth memorizes all that stuff. It's not possible, not possible. Even, on our team, we're a relatively small team, as you know, but like, man, like 10 years of hacking on this stuff, yeah, there's a lot of functions that are available to people to do stuff. So in this particular case, there's get force, that's interesting, friction, get inertia, you can get that, that's a real-time property, it changes all the time. There's get input groups, inverse mass, inverse inertia. I mean, there's a ton of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so to get that list, what do you do again to get that list? I'm using a mouse, so it's like.
You're good. To have it pop up, you either press : after a variable name,
Okay.
Or you press with a colon there, if that's gone, you press control space.
Control space, that's it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I got it. Okay.
Now those aren't used in the little quorum boxes online because they're kind of primitive. But on the offline tools, you get that kind of stuff in there, which is why it's so helpful because you can immediately know all the things you can call on a function. So it's like, oh, it's like a filter of all possible words down to, oh, there's a set that I can use. So it's a lot easier.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Randy.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, other questions? Okay, great. So in the schedule right now, we do have we do have a short break between 9:45 and 10, which we're slightly over. So what I want to do is let's take another 5-minute break. This will also give the people in the breakout rooms a little bit of time to catch up. And then, so why don't we come back at 10:01, and that will give us some time to clear our heads, but also like give the other folks just a little bit more time to kind of to hammer through whatever they're working on in there. Is that okay with everybody? So take another 5, and then we'll be back in just a few, and we'll move on to input. Oops. Where can we find recordings? We can't, the recordings won't be up until after the end of the week. And that's because doing the captioning was like 3 times the cost if we did it the same day or something like that. I forget exactly, but somebody else on the committee managed that piece, but it was quite a bit more expensive. So yeah. Okay, so 5-minute break. I'll be right back too, and then we'll be right back. Okay. Whenever people are ready to go, I'll wait another minute or so and I will get going on the next lesson. While that's going, I will put the next one into the chat and I will put it on the learner channel as well. Which is one more second. Okay. So let's go ahead and get going then. So the next part of our journey to making our game is we want to start, we've basically gotten properties from the system, and now we want to change them. We want to change them. And so as a first step, before we start, it might not be a bad idea to realize that if we've got an action in there called getX, in computer programming, for whatever reason, just as kind of a pseudo tradition, if we've got a get, we've also got a set. And so you can call setX, and instead of getting back information from getX, setX lets you put in information, and that changes the X coordinate or the Y coordinate of an item. And so at a big picture, what we're going to be doing in this particular one, if I can pull up my stuff, our learning objectives are as follows. First, we're going to learn about things called keyboard listeners. We'll talk about that. And second, we're going to talk about a thing called keyboard events. This is like what happens when a keyboard is pressed. And then we're going to learn broadly how to code user input. So we're basically going to be listening for when the user presses the keyboard. And then when they do, we're going to respond to that event. We're going to respond by eventually moving a character. But at first, for this one, we're only going to just output what the key is. We're trying to like scaffold it up. So like in this one, the last one, we got a property. In this one, we're going to get a message, and then we're going to output it. And then the ones after it, we're going to like add movement, and then we're going to add physics, and then we're going to add some various things as we go to try to make our game sort of more compelling. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do this add a strange command to our program. And that is on line 13 of our game, there's this weird line of code that says class main is game. So can someone tell me what they think that crazy nonsense means? Class main is game. It's weird, crazy nonsense. So what does it mean? If no one knows, or that's okay. Oh, I see chat popping up. Program begins. That's a good guess. That's a good guess. That's actually on line 18 where it says action main is where it begins, weirdly. Main is a subclass of game. That is the correct answer. And what does that mean, though? So here's the idea. Our program is part of what's called a class. And you can think about this as a noun, right? So like a dog could be a class, a building could be a class. These are sort of fake items that can do things. They can take certain kinds of actions. It's kind of like a noun. And any noun has a set of verbs associated with it. So class is the noun part, action is the verb part. Just like we're saying get X, we can define our own things that could be created, like our own version of get X. And in fact, we have. We've got something called main, an action called main. We've got an action called create game, and we've got an action called update. And these do different kinds of things. And we haven't talked in detail about what they are, but very briefly, main starts my game, create game sets it up, and update is actually an animation thing. Every frame of animation, it does stuff. Now you might think, boy, that sounds hypervisual. That's only for animation. But actually, you can do accessibility events in there too, and that's really important. And those have to be synced up in a very important way. And that handles both accessibility and the other. And that's always true. It just doesn't seem like it when you use a screen reader. But those are always synced with various kinds of animation frames. It's just the way operating systems work. Okay, so when I say is, my class main, my noun that I've defined and just given an arbitrary name of main, it could be anything I want, dog, monkey, rat, is game. Now game is another class. And what I'm saying is I want to inherit all the things that game can do on my own. And to show you what this is, I want you to go to line 13, and I want you to move the cursor onto the word game. And I want you to press Control J. And don't change anything in this file. That would be bad. But I want you to just observe a few things. Number one, the game class has 200 lines of use statements. You're not going to read them all unless you're masochistic. And then the class itself, if I can do this. Is more than 5,200 lines of code alone. There is a lot of stuff built into these other classes, and we get all of this for free because we say is game. And then you can close this file. Yes, we can go to put the cursor on line 13, and the line of code is class main is game. Now for screen reader users, you can also press Control Alt up to action main, and then it's up a few lines from there. Once you're on game, press Control J, and that'll pull out the file that says game.quorum. And all I really want you to notice is that this file is massive. It has tons and tons and tons of stuff in it that you all get for free. And you get all that for free because you said class main is game. That's the point. Okay, so what we're going to do in this lesson, we're going to say not only are we a game, we are also a keyboard listener. How do you make it go away? Good question. If you jump to it, you can either press Control Tab and it'll switch back to the other one. Or I think it's, what is the key command for closing that? Oh no, I closed my project. That was not what I intended. Okay, it's not Control W because I just closed my project. I think it was this. Yep, okay. I don't remember the keyboard shortcut off the top of my head to close the tab, but I know that you press Control Space to go to, Control Tab to go back to main.quorum. App key down to close. Which one's the app key?
Sorry about that. Most people don't know the applications key. It is that little square to the right of the Alt key on the right-hand side of your keyboard. Go Space, Alt, Applications key, or right-click with the mouse, and then down to close.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a blind user, a screen reader user is going to use the applications key. Every single blind person in here will know the applications key, but you can also right-click with your mouse and down to close. I just figured it out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for sure. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to line 13. Instead of jumping into that file, we're going to put a comma and then a space. And there's all sorts of errors that get generated in this file. That's okay. That's normal in programming because we're in the middle of typing something. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type keyboard listener, capital keyboard. And then this is slightly annoying, but like a lot of it turns green. It's just because of the nature of the thing. It thinks it's at the beginning through the end. And in this case, all this little green on my screen, which if you're a screen user wouldn't matter, it's going to say hint, just like it would otherwise. It's just going to have the same indicator. All I have to do, just like normal, is I press Alt-Enter. And voila, it added a use statement that says use libraries.interface.events.keyboardListener. Okay. And then inside of this, so I've then typed comma, space, capital K keyboard, capital L listener. And then I pressed Alt-Enter to use the hint. Now, for the sake of argument, I'm now going to jump into this file with Control-J. So Control-J on keyboard listener. And you'll notice that this is a much smaller file than game. But if you press Control-Alt down and don't change this file, there's two actions in it. There's press key and release key. Press key and release key. So take a wild guess. What do you think the difference is between pressed and released? What does anybody think? Feel free to type it in the chat, whatever works for you. Any guesses? Okay. Well, Earl, are you going to say something? Oh, no, you're still muted too. Okay. So a pressed key means that I physically push down on a key on the keyboard. Released key means I've let it up. So anytime that you're using the keyboard, and this is always true in pretty much any programming language, if you're pressing down, that's a pressed, and if you're pulling up, it's a released. And any keyboard event, you can get both pieces of information. So what we're going to do, we're going to use Control-Alt to get to the press key, and then we're going to go and we're going to copy-paste the action pressed key stuff. And so sorry, I'm used to my Mac. I don't like Cortana. We're going to press Control-C over it. And what I've got highlighted is action, press key, left paren, keyboard event, event, right paren, end. And we're just going to copy that function, that action, and we're going to paste it into our program. It doesn't really matter where, but I'm going to put it below update. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. In my keyboard listener, I've got an action. It's on line 43, but I'm going to use the magic keys, the smart nav keys to get to it, especially for screen reader users. I do this all the time as well. It's way easier. Oh, no. Oh, looks like William didn't record. That's okay. Sorry, just 1 second. I just discovered that William was not recording. So let me give him permission to record. Oh, he has to jump into the other room. Okay. So let me say it again. We want to use the smart navigation keys to get the press key, and then I can use normal keyboard commands on the keyboard like any text editor and hold shift and go down to read the thing. Yet for some reason you have to be in the main room to give you permission. I don't really
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hit it earlier.
Dude, it happens. Okay, more, allow record. Okay, you're good to go back.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So I've copy pasted that, and in main.quorum, below where it says action update number seconds end, I copy pasted action press key keyboard event end. And there's a hint on this line because it doesn't know everything it needs to know about this, and I'm just going to press Alt Enter on it. And that's going to make another thing, a use statement that says use libraries.interface.events.keyboard event. But you'll notice there's a couple things here. You don't have to memorize all this stuff, right? What I'm trying to show you how to do is strategically grab things from various places in Quorum so you can use the features without having to memorize all the different words and symbols that you need at any given time. That's kind of the strategy most people use in programming anyway. It's pretty normal. And so now inside of this press key, what I want to get everybody to do is I want everybody to say output and then a phrase of any kind to indicate the key was pressed. And we're going to run this program. And we're going to notice that it does nothing. And that's important to recognize. So we're going to add an output statement of any kind. And mine will, of course, be die evil Lord Bunnykins. That's my game. And when I run this program, oh, do you need me to make that bigger, Mike? Oh, okay. I saw squinting. I wasn't sure if that was there. I probably should have done that anyway, actually.
No, I have this really small screen underneath the Zoom window, and so I'm like trying to get down in there. And
oh,
that's
okay.
nothing. Your screen is good.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, so now, is everybody good? Do you kind of have that copy pasted in there? I don't know where everybody's at. Maybe give me press Alt Y if you're good, so I know whether or not I should slow down. Earl raised hand. Travis, Gina, I don't see. Denise raised hand. Gina, Travis, you guys look good. Ethan, are you good? Or Josh? You guys good? I just don't want to leave anybody behind. So, okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control R. I'm going to run my program, and I'm going to press a key in my game. And it's important to recognize this will not work. It will not do anything, and for a good reason that I'll get to. Okay, so I'm going to press Control R. And I've done it. I've set up my keyboard listener. I'm in the game. I press a key, and it's doing absolutely nothing. And so there's a good reason why. I'm going to close my game. In order for my keyboard listener to function, I need to tell the game that I want it to. In other words, think about it like this. You might be programming a game where you're listening for all sorts of different kinds of events, and you might want to tell some of them to turn off at sometimes and some of them to turn on and sometimes. And there's all sorts of really good reasons why you might want to do that, but you need to be able to turn them on and off. And the way that we do that, we have to tell the game. So we're going to go back to Action Create Game, and we're going to use Smart Navigation to get up to it. It's on line 27. But I'm going to go to Action Create Game, and I'm going to go right before end, right before where we did our properties, right after, I mean. And I'm going to press Control Space again. And I'm going to press A. inside of this, I see all sorts of functions or actions. Add directional light, add item, add point light, add collision listeners, add control activation listeners, add focus listeners, add input tables, add keyboard listeners. And so I'm going to press enter on add keyboard listener in code completion. And I'm going to do something really weird. And that is I'm going to put a parentheses, and then I'm going to type the word me, and then right parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to say that line of code again. Add keyboard listener. Each word has an uppercase letter. That's because of Bunita Sharif's work, who said that you should have that and that it increases comprehension by a tiny amount, but still non-zero. And then it's a left paren, me, and a right paren. And what this line of code is doing is it's saying, hey, game, I'm a keyboard listener, and I know how to respond to keyboard events how I want to. I want you to send me the events if they happen. If they never happen, no problem. But if they do happen, I want you to tell me about them. And that's that. And then once you've done this, I want you to run your game and start outputting keys and see if your output statement fires. It should. So I'm going to do that on my end. And Die Evil Lord Bunnykins is now firing to the screen, to the scene. Sorry, to the console. Now keep in mind for screen reader users, the console doesn't automatically output that stuff to you. And there's a really good reason for that. That could be thousands of events at once. You wouldn't be able to hear them all anyway. So, but it puts it into a log that you can reference, and then you can go down and get any of the information that you want in any order that helps. Okay. Is everybody with me so far on that? Does everybody have keys? Raise hand if you have a key. Denise has got it. It's firing keys. Earl has got it. I'll give you all a couple more minutes. I hope that what you're starting to catch is that now that I've got a scene, now I can start to manipulate it and make actions for my game that cause it to really do the kind of stuff that I want to do. You can trigger movement, you can trigger accessibility events, you can trigger stuff specifically for screen readers, you can trigger whatever you damn well please. You're muted, Kathy. I know. I've been there.
Sorry, I have two screens and they switched. So my mouse is going in the wrong direction.
So what's up?
Oh, nothing. I was good.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw you talking. I thought you were trying to ask a question.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out my crazy screens.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Sorry. So.
No.
Okay. Any questions about where we're at so far before I go into the next topic, which is figuring out what keys do what? Any questions? Are we doing okay? Like, I mean, are you stuck or anything? Like, is everybody kind of understanding? Is this understandable? Okay, good. All right. Okay. I mean, it's funny because it's like, it looks like a lot of code, but like if you scaffold it up, it's really not that bad. And like the whole point is it gets you to like being able to do cool stuff right away, which is kind of why we scaffold the EPIQ committees all scaffolded it this way this year. So anyway, so, okay, the next thing that we're going to do then is we're going to go down using the Control Alt again. We're going to go down to the action press key. And then on this line of code, it says action press key, left paren, keyboard event. And we're going to press Control J on this thing. And we're going to go look at the kind of stuff that's in this keyboard event file. Now, again, don't change this file because this actually will mess you up. But inside of this file, it has a couple things. It has a weird thing that says public constant integer press key and release key. There's key codes, event types, and there's public constant integer any key, public constant integer num_0, and there's actually keys for all sorts of stuff. We're not going to talk about them all, and no one on earth memorizes these. Don't make your students memorize them. It's a waste of time. No one memorizes them. It's too much information, and it's pointless information. This isn't the kind of thing. Memorizing keys like this would not help you be a better programmer. It just wouldn't. Looking it up makes you a better programmer, right? So what we're going to do, though, is I want you to notice at the very top of this file, on line 17, there's a line of code that says public integer key code. That's the key that the user pressed. And interestingly, all these constants, I can compare to them and use them. So we're not going to do the comparison right. Oh, actually, wait, is it in this one? Oh yeah, we're only going to output the key code for this one. That's right. Okay, so inside of our item, what I'm going to then do is I'm going to say event, so I'm on line 46. Action press key. To get there, you can press Control Alt up and down with the keyboard. And then once I'm on action press key, keyboard event, I want to add a blank spot, add a blank, and then I'm going to type event : and then I'm going to press K, which is for key code. And key code has a type integers, just a primitive type, exactly like we've been talking about. And before that event : key code, I'm actually going to type output, and I'm going to delete my die evil Lord Buddykins phrase. So saying that line again, output space event : key lowercase k and capital C code. That's called camel case versus Pascal case, which is what the actions are. Fun fact, in the literature, nobody knows if that's actually the right answer. There's been no studies comparing variables versus, to my knowledge. I would like to know the answer to that, but we do not know the answer. Okay, now I've got a program that in theory should output the key code. So then what I would like to do is I would like people to put into the chat. I'm going to pull it up. The listener did not work for you. Did you forget? I mean, sorry, did you forget? Do you have the line of code that says add keyboard listener with the me line for Denise? I'll dump it into chat. It's that one. You have to put that in create name.
I got it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what I would like is I'd like someone to find through your output statement, I would like someone to find what is the key code for the space key. So someone dump that into the chat. And I will wait just a minute. I just want to make sure that you know how to get these. So you run your program, you press space, that will output it to the console, and then you can either say it verbally or you can dump it into the chat. It will tell you. If we can't figure it out, then I'll do it, and then I'll show you how to do it. And I can do it with a screen reader too. Earl Huff was the first. He claimed 62. What other answers do people get? Kathy says 62. Mike Facegas says 62. Okay, so I'm going to turn on a screen reader, and I'm going to do it with a screen reader just to kind of both prove that it could be done and also just so I'm being as equitable as I can. And we'll see if this 62 answer is correct.
Quorum Studio 2.0.1 window.
Run it.
Build successful in game window.
Okay, Now I have the game window and it's open. It doesn't make any sound because we have to code accessibility into our games if we want them, because the game could be absolutely anything. We can't dictate what program you're writing. Maybe you're writing something that's not a game. Maybe you're writing something that's just another program, whatever it is. I press space.
Space.
And when that happens, it puts it into the console. So with the screen reader, I then have to
Quorum Studio 2.0. Quorum Studio 2.
And I press Control 3.
Output tabs tab control. Running hands-on with Quorum Studio. Build successful in 0.05 second. Down with Evil Lord Bunnykins. 80.0. 62. 57.
Now it said 57 as well because I Alt-tabbed out and that was still listening on that particular item. So that's why it said that. But 62 is still there, and my 80.0 was the number that I output from my getX command.
Exit NV.
So the point is, even though I pressed space, I was using other keys as well. And so that's why that number was varied, but 62 was correct. Now, if I go back to that file, if I press Control Tab back to the, oops, I'm not in there anymore. Control 2, that takes me back to the editor. Now, if I press Control Tab onto keyboard event, if I also, oh geez, where's space? Space is in here somewhere. You can press Control F to find it. I guess I could do that, but I'm just mindlessly scrolling. Space is also says it's 62. So not surprisingly, there was a constant, it was set to that, and voila. So there we go.
I have a question, Andy.
Yes, ma'am.
Now you deleted the line that said output died Evil Lord Bunnykin, but
Right.
how come it outputted that in the game? And like it outputted my one that I thought I deleted also. Down with Evil Lord Bunnykin.
Oh, it did on mine too. Oh, that's because I have it still in my create game. I didn't realize I still had it there. So.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
yes,
my fault.
that's where it is. Okay, okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, other questions? That, believe it or not, that's all you need to know for the most part of getting keyboard events up and running. That was the crux of the thing. So the last thing in the lesson, I would like to, if possible, have people flip on their microphones and have a discussion about this particular piece. I'd like it to be interactive as possible.
So I'm now in Zoom and I'm in the Dr. Stefan's session. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn the microphone.
Oh, you're okay. So now the last thing that I wanted to do for this particular session was to have a discussion. And that would be, we can either do it in breakout rooms with individuals, or we can just do it as a group discussion. Is there a preference? I could make a couple breakout rooms and put you on each. So what I would like to do is do that, if that's okay with people. Assign people.
I've got a quick question though.
Yes.
So I was able to do all this, and fortunately none of it crashed, but I was not able to do my update my clone. It would not clone. And when you were doing your alt space, and you know how you could hit a letter and it would automatically open up the drop down. Well, when I would type it, I would do the alt space, my drop down opened up, but I could not do what I call first letter navigation, hit A and then automatically pop to it. So I've got a couple issues if
it's not a bug, it's that we haven't finished that feature yet. So that will probably come out in a patch, but you're right, first letter navigation is not in there. It's because we have to edit for every single component in all of Quorum Studio, and there's like 20 or 30 of them, and we just haven't finished it yet. So it's a known accessibility problem, and it will be worked on, but we haven't finished it yet. So
okay, do you have any suggestion on the clone issue that I'm having that I can't update the patch?
What is it doing? Did you happen to upgrade to the latest version, 2.0.1?
No, I think I'm on 2.0. Hold on, let me see.
Oh yeah, because I fixed that last night and we pushed a patch on it. So it was broken and then we fixed it yesterday. So
right, I was here at the start of the lesson when you showed us how to do it. It wouldn't do it.
Are you on? Do you? Would you mind sharing your screen? Is that okay?
I can do that.
Dr. Stefan, do you mind sending me to the room with
I can, and you can also
Yes.
move yourself to the assigned rooms as well, to that particular room.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't remember exactly how you do it, but I will.
Don't see it. The thing is, I installed this in another computer, and I'm trying to do this from another computer.
Yeah, I'll move you there.
Thank you.
It says, oh no, it always says you have access, so you have to move yourself, I think.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, I will figure it out. No worries.
yeah, sorry.
And it says I cannot share screen while other participants are sharing screen.
Oh, okay.
Unless-
I'll turn mine off. You should be good to go.
Okay, and I didn't get my pop-up window. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let me see which screen my stuff is on. This looks like it's it. Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, that's the problem. You have 2.0.0. You actually don't have the latest version. So.
Okay. Do I just?
Yeah. So I swear you can do this even right now, and it should be fine. Go up to Help.
Okay.
And then check for updates.
Be nice.
And you have to put in your Quorum username and password.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. This is the hardest part. I promise you. If you don't remember right now, you can do this later, but that is the clone problem. And it will be a legit bug. And if you put that in and then go back to check for updates, it will update Quorum for you.
Fabulous. And I can leave my program open when I do this?
Yep, should be good to go.
Okay, fabulous.
I do that all the time, and it works for me. But, we're giving live demos this week, so it's inevitable something will go wrong, but, it works for me, so.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.